Hi, my name is Deanna Brossman, and I am going to give you a little overview of what the standards-based gradebook can look like for parents who are using it here at GHS. So what I've done in one of my courses, English 101, is I've set up the real gradebook with some fake assignments, and I've graciously been allowed by one parent to use that student's information. So these are all generic sample assignments where I've plugged some numbers in so you can see how this works. So when you look at your students' grades in Family Access, the only thing that you're going to notice is different between a standards-based gradebook and a regular gradebook right now is that there's only a semester grade. So there's no grade there for the first quarter because the grading period itself is just one semester. So this grade is what is always in flux until we get to the end of the semester and it becomes finalized like all the other grades. Of course, you can click on the grade itself, and that can open up some information for you here. The first thing that you're going to notice is that there's a bunch of colored bands, and these colored bands are the different priority standards that your student has to show proficiency in order to pass the course and get their grade. So if you click on the proficiency standard itself, it will open up and give you what looks like kind of an overwhelming amount of information. But basically right here, you will see the written explanation of what that writing process subject is all about. So for example, here the student has to follow the steps in the writing process, which means pre-writing, drafting, revising, and editing. Now if you look right here, it says show events. So if we click on that, show events will actually show you any of the assignments that I have put in that have to do with the writing process. And I created 4 fake sample events here so that we could take a look at the progression. So we could see them here, and you can either show all events right on that screen, or you can hide them. You can hide the skills if you want to, or you can show the skill, and all that means is it gives you a written explanation of what that portion of the grade is all about. So here you've got the overall grade for what it is, and then the calculated score for that skill. So that's one of the things to show you is that all of these different scores are going to be given potentially different percentages. They are not necessarily all going to be even. In my course, these first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them are all part of the grade, and then you'll notice down here that the last 2 are not. So you might see some information that has nothing to do with the grade itself. But that way, when you look at this screen and you can see the percentages of them, you can see what's most important. And in this course, of course, content is most important. So, producing an essay in which they explore writing as a means of self-discovery, both for their ideas and then for their organization. So some subjects will end up having more than one skill. And if that is true, the teacher can also weight these skills. So for me, your ideas and your content is slightly more important than the way that you have it organized. So once I start putting grades into this, you'll start to see that be a part of it. In fact, I have already done so down here with professionalism. So if we take a look at the professionalism grade and we ask it to show all events, we can see that I have put events in for... Well, you can't really tell by looking at it, though if I wanted to click on the assignment, I could find more information. So you'll see here, if I click on the assignment itself, not only do I have the skill that is being assessed, but it also has right here, you can see an attachment, so that if you wanted to take a look at what it is that I'm grading on it, I have my rubric attached, which is a feature that you may or may not have used in other teachers' classrooms. So if you see any information like this, if you see a little symbol like a paper clip, that's more information for you. I'm going to get out of this, and I'm going to go back to show all events. That's what I want to see. Okay, so I can see that these are formative assessments, and what else can I see from the screen? That's kind of it, but I can see that the student in their first time out in this formative assessment got a 4, and in this one got a 5, but their grade is really a 4 and a 3, but their grade is calculated for a 3. So I need to go somewhere else so that I can see a better understanding of what's going on. So I'm going to click out of this one, and I'm actually going to go here. So you see you've got a little arrow triangle by the name of the course. So what I can do here is within this screen, I can also see that same band. And you'll notice that in the bands that I have put information in, I've got a number that's calculated. And in the ones that I haven't put any fake assignments in, it just looks like a grade book. So I'm going to go back down to this professionalism screen. And it gets me kind of right back to where I was. So I have some events. Here we go. This is what I've been trying to figure out for you. One of the grades that I put in was about their conventions, and one of them is for their document formatting. And so you can see here that 60% of their grade is their conventions, which they were proficient in, but they were advanced in their ability to put together their document formatting. But because this is 60% of the grade, and that's 40% of the grade when it's calculated out, they're getting really, really close to getting an A, but right now they're still in that proficient zone. Okay. I hope that made more sense. I gotta click out of this so that you can, there we go. Okay, I've also put some grades into the writing process up here so that you could follow along with how potentially your student might show some linear progress. So again, if you want to see the assignments, they're called events in this grade book. So you open it up and you take a look at the events. So first of all, I want you to notice that they're going to go in descending date order. So your most recent assignments are going to be at the top, and the first ones that you do are going to be at the bottom. So if we take a look at their grades, we can actually see a linear progression here. So the first time that they tried the writing process, maybe not so good. In fact, I've got a little speech bubble there, and so I can click on this to view comments. And what I, as a teacher, had written is that the student mixed up the revision and editing process, which is a reason why they're not quite yet proficient in going through the writing process. So I can click out of that. If I come up here, I'll notice that I've got a little circle I, and it says View Special Code. So I'm going to look at that one, and oh, okay, my teacher's giving me a signal that I can redo this one. This is something that I could redo or retest on, so I want to think about that. But you'll notice here that as the student works more on their writing process, now suddenly, okay, the second time they did it, they got a 3. The third time, they still got a 3. The fourth time, they're really pushing up into that higher quality work. So 2 of these are formative assessments, which mean they're going to be a smaller part of the grade. So your teachers can set the percentage at which the formative assessments are. And then as we look at the calculation of that grade, then it starts to make more sense of how we're getting to a 3.26. Now, one thing that I wanted to show you on the teacher end of it is I'm looking at, so this is the teacher screen, in case you are ever interested, parents. As I'm looking at this, I am always checking for a linear progression. So if I start to see a student who has done something at a particular level at least twice, I'm going to assume, okay, this student's no longer at a 2. Like, that 2 is not accurate anymore. Possibly they're at a 4. I haven't seen them do a 4 2 times in a row, so I'm going to kind of hold off on that. But I'm comfortable going back to this 2 score, and I'm going to no count it. And when I no count a score, it doesn't leave your view here. But what it does is, I don't think that's representative of the work that they've done. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to click no count. And what that's going to do is pull her score out of the system. And so 3.26 was the grade that she had before, and when we no counted that, which now makes it dark bold with a little, well, that's the note about mixed up the revision process, but it will also make something bold if you no count it. Now her grade has risen just a little bit higher. So these are things that can be done in order to help make sure that your student's grade is the most accurate possible. So these students have to go through the writing process 6 times. So my guess is on the 5th and the 6th essay, this student is likely to get a 4. So it's probably going to end up being a solid 4.0 grade for this particular category. So all of these different standards by the end of the semester will have some grades in them, so you can see the difference between the formative and the summative assessments. Remember, the summative assessments mean more. Some of the categories are weighed more than others. You can even have some categories that are sort of in like a pass-fail type capacity, which is what I do with this one. If we take a look at the details here, I either say they're meeting or they're not meeting. And so I tell the students, hey, you either got an A or you got an F on this one. And they all have A's because they listen to what I say and they follow my instructions. So again, that can vary from course to course and from skill to skill. Down here at the bottom, it is also possible for teachers to give you some information about assignments that they want you to know about, but not necessarily be a part of the grade. So like if I want them to watch a video, well, I can't really grade them for watching a video, but I can let you know whether or not they have completed that right here or not completed it. So the way that I have this set up is that if they have an incomplete for any of these assignments, it'll tell you right here, this I will tell you that, hey, they haven't done all the work they need to. Now, that will not necessarily affect their grade, because if we look at the details here, the completion category is 0% points of their final grade. So it's not so much that it's harming them, but that it's a piece of information that both teachers and students and parents can use to understand what's going on. Same thing here with these behavioral grades. So once or twice a semester, I want to give my students feedback on whether or not they're using their time effectively and whether or not they are adhering to academic honesty by avoiding plagiarism. And so for this student, I purposely gave them the worst score possible. So if we go, I'm going to go into that from this view. If we go into the behavior grades here, and we look more closely at the information, you'll see that the grade mark here, they've either done it consistently, they've done it sometimes, or they've done it rarely. So they're not going to get real strong points for a rarely score, and if they do it consistently, they're going to get, the 4 points on that scale. So then when you average them 50-50 and you show these events, I gave her the bad score. I gave her the rarely. But what I did that on purpose to show you that even if your child is maybe earning some behavioral scores that are not where you want them to be, it's not pulling down that B+ at all. This student, remember, is just this far away from getting that A grade. And if you want to know what scores you need in order to get that A grade, you've got a description of them there. So the highest score that you can get is a 4. The lowest score is going to be the 3.91. And so it's going to follow the same plus and minus schedule that the rest of the high school is on. And in fact, I know one of the questions that I got from parents when I first started using this system is, what are colleges going to see? Well, colleges are only going to see your transcript, and the only thing that's going to be written on the transcript is a letter score. So colleges don't know whether we're using a standard-based system or not, though certainly if they, when I have shared this information with Blackhawk College, they've been very positive about it. So transcript-wise, it's not going to look any different. And if you're only interested in kind of keeping your eye on that letter score is going to be there and it's going to change. The one thing I will say is that in a standards-based grading system, it's actually really awesome if they're already starting out at a 3, right? If they're starting out at proficient, which is the B level, day 1 on their first assignment, that's awesome. But they might be living in that B zone for the first several weeks until they figure out what it is they need to learn in order to do better. And then mid-semester, you might start to see that growth towards maybe the advanced grade and that A score. So it takes some patience on the part of students. It takes some patience on the part of parents. But you can support your students by looking at those individual scores, right? So as these numbers start to pop up on the screen, if you notice any of them at a 2 or at a 1, those are places where you can have a conversation, and you can open it up by looking at what that particular standard says, and maybe asking the student, well, how could you do better? Because remember, we don't have extra credit anymore, but you can have a conversation with your child about, hey, if you really want an A, these 3 of them are at a 3 level. What is it that your teacher said that you can do in order to raise that up? What things could you do in order to be more detailed or to go to that advanced level? So I hope that this gave you a good idea of just what it looks like. It looks so different, but as my students said who used it last year, it looks like a lot of information up front, but once you get used to these categories and what your teacher's trying to teach you, then suddenly it makes so much sense, and it's so much clearer about what you have to do in order to earn that next higher grade. if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, dbrosman@geneseoschools.org. And I hope that this did a good job of really explaining the standards-based grade book to you.